Welcome to the Killer Tier List. Before we get started, let me explain how I'll be ranking each killer. Rather than using the traditional grade-based tiers, I'll be assigning each killer a score based on how well they perform in 3 categories. These categories are stall potential, mechanics that help slow objective completion, lethality, how fast a killer can end chases, and detection, how quickly a killer can find survivors. You might be wondering why I chose to evaluate all killers based on these attributes. Well, the answer is that all of these revolve around the concept of time, which killers always seem to be lacking. Most trials only last about 10 minutes, and killing 4 survivors in that time is often a challenge. So these categories measure the potential each killer has in reducing the time it takes to kill survivors or increasing the time it takes for survivors to win. When evaluating each killer, I will only be talking about their base power and game mechanics. No add-ons or perks will be factored into their scores, as they can drastically influence them. One final word before we begin. I understand how serious the relationship can get between players and their killers, and hearing criticism about yours may feel like having a chainsaw rip through your heart. So if you'd like to share your feelings about them in a mature and thoughtful manner, feel free to comment below. So with all that being said, let's begin. First up is Trapper. He's a pretty basic killer with the standard 115% move speed and 32 meter tear radius. His strength lies in his bear traps, which can instantly end chases and grant him map awareness when they're disarmed. They can also be used to great effect when guarding hooks in basements. The problem with Trapper, however, is that getting survivors to run into his traps is somewhat luck-based, and they can't be set during chases without losing some distance. He also has to find and set his traps at the start of the game, which often results in 1 or 2 generators popping before any hooks have been secured. Additionally, Trapper has no mechanics that help him slow objective completion. He can trap the exit gates though, which makes it significantly harder for survivors to escape. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Trapper a 2 in stall potential, 6 in lethality, and 3 in detection. Next we have Wraith. Similar to Trapper, he has the standard killer attributes. However, his power grants him extra move speed and reduces his tear radius to 0, making both finding survivors and landing first hits very easy. Wraith also gains a speed boost after exiting stealth, which can sometimes allow him to end short loops faster. There are some problems with Wraith, however. His power often doesn't help during chases, his cloak shimmers when he moves, and his bell ringing gives survivors early warning to run for a pallet or window. Wraith also doesn't have any mechanics to help him slow objective completion. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Wraith a 0 in stall potential, a 4 in lethality, and a 10 in detection. Next up is Hillbilly. He has the standard killer attributes and a chainsaw sprint that grants him incredible movement speed, map pressure, and an insta-down, making his power one of the most dangerous in the game. Billy can often find survivors quickly thanks to how fast he can patrol generators, and end chases quickly in certain situations, such as when survivors run down narrow hallways or when he's right on top of them. However, he is capable of getting looped just like most killers since his chainsaw isn't much help when turning corners. Billy also does not have any mechanics to help slow objective completion. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Hillbilly a 0 in stall potential, 9 in lethality, and 5 in detection. Next we have Nurse. She has a standard killer tear radius, but is actually the only killer that moves slower than survivors. However, she more than makes up for this with her blink, which allows her to quickly close gaps with survivors, warp through walls, and ignore virtually every defense survivors normally have versus other killers. Nurse's chase times are often some of the fastest in the game, as her blink lets her catch up to survivors even with their speed boost from getting injured. That being said, Nurse tends to have a hard time tracking survivors due to her slow move speed and fatigue after each blink, and she lacks mechanics to help slow objective completion. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Nurse a 0 in stall potential, 10 in lethality, and 2 in detection. Next in line is the Shape. He has a smaller tear radius than most killers, and moves at standard speed after reaching Evil Within 2. He's great at getting easy first hits and grabs on survivors, and he can one-shot survivors after he reaches Evil Within 3. Additionally, his stalk ability combined with his small tear radius allows him to find survivors quickly. The issues with Myers, however, are that he's reliant on stealth to build his Evil Within, and there are many maps with open areas that make this difficult for him. He also has no way to shorten loops besides one-shotting survivors at Evil Within 3. Myers also lacks any mechanics that might help slow objective completion. So with these key points in mind, I'll be giving the Shape a 0 install potential, 8 in lethality, and 5 in detection. Next up is the Hag. She has a small tear radius and slower move speed than most killers, making her fairly easy to loop. Until you take her power into consideration, Hag's traps allow her to teleport anywhere they're triggered, granting her an insane amount of map pressure and a guaranteed hit in most cases. Hag's chase times are usually quite short, as she can set numerous traps at once and cut off access to windows and pallets. Her traps also provide her with a large amount of map awareness, since the phantasms that spawn will always face the direction of the survivor who triggered them. Although she doesn't have any direct methods of stalling objective completion, the threat of stepping on a trap is often enough to get survivors to crouch walk, which increases the time it takes for them to move around the map. The major weaknesses Hag suffers are her slow patrol and setup times, which often allow survivors to knock out a few generators early. So, with these key points in mind, I'll be giving Hag a 2 install potential, 7 in lethality, and 6 in detection. Next we have Leatherface. He has all the standard killer attributes and plays very much like a basic killer with no power until you get within melee range. Then you have the option of using his chainsaw, which can one-shot survivors. Unlike Hillbilly's chainsaw, Leatherface has full control of his movement while swinging his saw, which makes landing hits more reliable. However, the problems with Leatherface are that oftentimes survivors will be within distance of a window or pallet before he can reach them. Survivors can also kite him around trees or walls to stun him if he bumps into them during his frenzy. This often results in Leatherface having to down survivors with his basic attack instead, which essentially makes him a killer with no power. Leatherface also lacks any means of slowing objective completion and has no abilities to help him find survivors faster. He can guard basements very well though, I'll give him that. So with these key points in mind, I'll be giving Leatherface a 0 install potential, a 5 in lethality, and a 0 in detection. Next we have the Doctor. He has all the standard killer attributes, but his power is one of the most complex in the game. It allows him to shock survivors and drive them insane, forcing them to scream and reveal their positions. Shocking survivors also stops them from using pallets or windows for a few seconds, making it possible to deny loops with well-timed shocks. His static field allows him to find survivors almost immediately at the start of a match, and passively builds madness which survivors will have to manage carefully. Madness at level 3 disables survivors from performing most actions until they snap out of it, making the Doctor's madness mechanic one of the best for stalling out the game. However, there are many instances where he's able to be looped just like most basic killers, and ranking up madness takes time, which can result in chases taking longer than usual. Additionally, walking around in treatment mode reduces his move speed slightly, so patrol times take longer as well. So with these key points in mind, I'll be giving Doctor a 7 install potential, a 3 in lethality, and an 8 in detection. Next up is the Huntress. Her move speed is a bit slower than most killers, and her lullaby can be heard from 40 meters away, which is the largest audible warning radius of any killer in the game. However, her hatchets make up for this by allowing her to attack from a distance. With proper aim and timing, Huntress can shut down loops and end chases very quickly. She does have her weaknesses though. Survivors can juke or put objects between themselves and the Huntress to block her hatchets. And if she runs out of hatchets during a chase, she either has to reload at a locker or continue the chase as a 110% movement speed killer with no power. She also tends to have a difficult time finding survivors, as her lullaby radius is so large it gives survivors ample time to hide before she arrives. Huntress also lacks mechanics for slowing objective completion. So with these key points in mind, I'll be giving Huntress a 0 install potential, a 9 in lethality, and a 0 in detection. Next we have the Nightmare. Now, Freddy just recently received his rework, and his power may be tweaked in the future, but this is what he's looking like right now. His dream snares reveal survivor locations when triggered, and allow him to shorten loops, offering some utility both in and out of chases. His dream projection lets him teleport to any generator on the map, which helps him find survivors and keep objectives from getting done. His passive dream world mechanic encourages survivors to spend time waking up, which helps prolong the game. He also becomes invisible outside a certain radius, making it easier for him to sneak up on survivors and land first hits. However, survivors can ignore his snares if they're awake, turning him into an easy killer to loop. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Freddy a 4 in stall potential, a 5 in lethality, and a 4 in detection. Next up is the pig. She has all the standard killer attributes, but her power is kinda split into 3 different abilities: crouch, ambush, and her reverse bear traps. Crouching reduces her tear radius to 0 and makes it easy to snatch survivors off generators and land first hits. Ambush can be used to mind game loops and land hits you wouldn't be able to otherwise. And reverse bear traps help stall out the game, and in rare cases can result in a kill. However, Pig can be looped just like most killers, and her ambush isn't suitable for every situation. Also, the amount of time reverse bear traps buy you is totally luck-based. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Pig a 5 in stall potential, a 4 in lethality, and a 4 in detection. Next we have the Clown. He plays a lot like a basic killer, having all the standard attributes, but his afterpiece tonic is what separates him from the rest. Well-aimed bottle throws can help close distance gaps with survivors and force them to throw pallets down early, or even abandon a loop altogether. His bottles also cause survivors to reveal their locations, making them effective detection tools. However, slowing survivors isn't always enough to stop them from making it to a pallet or window, and he can oftentimes be looped just like most killers. He also lacks any means of slowing objective completion. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Clown a 0 in stall potential, a 6 in lethality, and a 2 in detection. Up next is the Spirit. She has a smaller tear radius and slower move speed than most killers, but her phase walk power more than makes up for that. It allows her to roam the map invisibly and at a faster speed, which makes patrolling generators and landing surprise attacks on survivors easy. Phase walk can also be used to great effect during chases, allowing Spirit to mind game loops and catch up to survivors. Spirit does have her weaknesses though. Survivors can use scratch mark jukes during phase walk to mislead her, or vault windows or pallets since Spirit can't vault or destroy pallets during her haunting. She also has no mechanics for stalling the game. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Spirit a 0 in stall potential, an 8 in lethality, and a 4 in detection. Next up is Legion. He plays a lot like a basic killer with all the standard attributes, but has an easier time landing first hits on survivors thanks to his frenzy. The increased movement speed it offers makes it easy to run down survivors, and Legion gains vision of all nearby survivors after landing a successful stab, making it a powerful detection tool. It also inflicts deep wounds on survivors, which helps stall the game by forcing them to mend. Legion does have his weaknesses though, one of them being that he can't see survivor scratch marks during frenzy, making it easy to lose track of survivors who break line of sight with him. Legion also can't down survivors during his frenzy, which basically turns him into a killer with no power when attempting to down injured survivors. He also suffers a lengthy cooldown when ending frenzy that allows survivors to find safety before he can recover. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Legion a 10 in stall potential, a 1 in lethality, and an 8 in detection. Next we have the Plague. She has all the standard killer attributes, but her power mixes up how she approaches chases. Vile Purge allows Plague to injure survivors without suffering an attack cooldown, so it's sometimes possible to end chases quickly using it. If she obtains Corrupt Purge, she can damage survivors from afar similar to the Huntress, making her chase times significantly shorter. Her power also helps stall the game by infecting survivors and forcing them to waste time cleansing at fountains or risk being one-shot. She can vomit on objects like generators or lockers to both alert her when survivors touch them, and discourage survivors from wanting to interact with those objects at all. Although Plague's power has a lot of utility, it's not very threatening unless she has Corrupt Purge. Survivors can run around corners or juke to make it difficult to hit them with Vile Purge. and even after they're infected, they may choose not to cleanse at fountains to deny Plague her corrupt purge. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Plague a 4 install potential, 6 in lethality, and 3 in detection. And for our last killer, we have Ghostface. He has all the basic killer attributes, but he can also crouch and turn his terror radius to 0 using his Night Shroud ability. This allows him to find survivors easily and perform surprise attacks. Additionally, he can stalk survivors to expose them and down them quickly. Ghostface does have his weaknesses though. He becomes one of the easiest killers to loop after being revealed, since he's only able to stalk while Night Shroud is active. He also has to spend more time getting into position in order to stalk without being detected, and there are quite a few maps with wide open areas that make stalking difficult. He also has no methods of stalling the game. So with those key points in mind, I'll be giving Ghostface a 0 install potential, a 7 in lethality, and a 6 in detection. So now that we have the numbers, let's take the average of each killer's score and put them all side by side. Now I know what you're thinking. Just looking at the highest scoring killers, you can tell something's wrong. And you're right. What went wrong was assuming each of these categories should be valued equally. When it comes down to it, lethality is the most important category for a killer. Ending chases quickly makes stall potential less necessary. And detection is more of a luxury, since killers always have a general idea of where to find survivors. That is, around the generators. So I'll factor in some multipliers to these scores and we'll see what the new rankings look like. There we go. Now these rankings look more accurate. Keep in mind that while these numbers do take into account more than each killer's ability to end chases quickly, the majority of the killer's time will be spent chasing survivors. So adjusting the weights of each score was crucial to get a more realistic portrayal of each killer's power level. Also keep in mind that add-ons and perks were not factored into these scores. But anyways, that's about it for this killer tier list. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe for future content.